Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Megan. I'm a first-year medical student. I'm actually finishing up my very first week as a medical student. And so normally I share more day in the life or travel type vlogs, but I've been feeling a need to make a series of vlogs about how to get into medical school, information and advice on the Mcat or the application process, and answer all the questions that I had as I was going through the process. I didn't have anyone in my immediate circle really that was a doctor. So, if you're in the same situation, maybe I could help you answer some questions along the way. But so I've got notes here. I've got ideas for 10 videos on the pre-med process. So I thought today, video 1, I would share with you sort of my path to getting into medical school. So here we go. So I'm a non-traditional student. I'm 32 years old, and it was hard. It was hard to get here later in life, but you can do it. So right out of high school, I entered college. That's what I thought I was supposed to do, but I really didn't have a lot of direction. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't really have a lot of good mentors around me, sort of steering me in the right direction. So I I did party too much. I didn't take school very seriously, and I was kind of flunking out toward the end of that first semester. So I ended up withdrawing and not returning to college after that. So I was kind of floundering for a couple of years. I started working at a gym, and that was fine. There's nothing wrong with working at a gym, but, knew I wasn't going to be satisfied and that I needed to do something else. So I had met a lot of police officers at the gym, and several of them kept telling me, "You have the right personality to be a police officer. We just see it. We think you should go to the police academy." And I was like, "What? Me? I don't know about that." I was coming off of a pretty hard party time in my life where we were like, screw cops. But I decided to try it out. And so I applied and was accepted and joined the police academy. So I initially worked 2 years as a correctional officer, and then eventually was able to join a patrol shift. While on patrol, I got additional duties of crime scene investigation added. So I went to some special training classes and went through a certification program and sort of added crime scene investigation to my daily life as a patrol officer. So it was at that time that I went to a coroner's office for the first time. So one of my jobs as a crime scene investigator was to go and collect evidence from bodies, take photographs, etc. And that was really my first time experiencing medicine as sort of this analytical problem-solving thing. When I thought of medicine prior to that, I thought of going to my primary care doctor and getting an antibiotic if, I had a sinus infection, which didn't really seem that interesting to me personally. And I still don't feel very drawn to primary care medicine. So, I guess if you are mildly interested in medicine, just know that there are a lot of other specialties that you may not have been exposed to. And so for me, it took seeing medicine at the coroner's office and forensic pathology to realize that I was actually interested in becoming a doctor. Seeing the human body opened up from the inside is crazy fascinating to me. Our bodies do some wonky things. And, people end up at the coroner's office for all kinds of reasons. It doesn't have to be some traumatic injury or, I don't know, some gunshots or something. Often people die and an autopsy is ordered because we don't know what happened to them. And so they may have had a blood clotting disorder that they didn't know about, and their lungs were full of blood clots, or they didn't realize that they had heart disease and had clearly probably a heart attack, or this, a crazy undiagnosed cancer. So a brain tumor. Like we would see these fascinating things all the time. And I just really loved that part of my job. I loved going to the coroner's office and the new and exciting mysteries that we were going to sort of figure out every day. And eventually one of the medical examiners, or, forensic pathologists, however I've referred to them, kind of pulled me aside one day and she was like, okay, Megan, I'm calling an intervention. Like, people don't like being here this much, but it's not a bad thing. You could be a doctor. And I was like, what? Me? I'm just a dumb cop. Like, again, like coming off of those self-esteem issues, sort of trying to figure out who I was in my early 20s, what my goals and things were. I had never thought of myself as capable of becoming a doctor, or really even thought about it as a career option for myself. But I'm very thankful for her and her persistence, because she kept hounding me about needing to do medical school. So I was very hesitant for, a number of reasons. I really liked my police job. I loved police work and crime scene investigation. I was certainly daunted because at that point, when I really started considering it heavily, I was 25 and knew that if I really decided to do undergrad and then med school and then residency, it was going to be a long time, like a long process, before I could be working on my own. And so that part was kind of daunting. And then the money. I had already purchased a home at that point. I had a car payment, just trying to think about financial logistics and all of the debt that you accrue if you want to become a doctor. Spoiler alert, it's very expensive to go to medical school if you didn't already know that. And, I certainly wasn't coming from a family that could pay for all of that. So, worrying about the debt was certainly something on my mind. But ultimately, I knew that I was going to regret it if I didn't go down this path. So I just made a choice and had, followed through. So, so sorry, I'm looking down at my notes. I just want to make sure I don't miss anything. So I enrolled in college and started knocking out some of the, sort of those humanities and general studies classes that colleges make you do. And then I got to the point where I needed to start taking some pre-medical prerequisite courses, which have to be taken in person. Most medical schools do not accept coursework that has been taken online if it's a class that they require. Even your Englishes or literatures, math, they all want those to be taken in person. And coming off of a pretty full patrol and crime scene schedule, it was getting really difficult to schedule in-person courses. So, and some labs, like science labs, I was going to have to start thinking about those. So ultimately I had to make a hard decision, which was to leave patrol and crime scene. And it broke my heart. That's probably the hardest decision I've ever made. Somewhere in my head, I was living in like La La Land, thinking I could do it all, but it just wasn't possible. So I transferred to our 911 division at work and worked as a dispatcher overnight, which actually ended up working out really well for school, because overnight, you're busy for a few hours, but then, 10, 11 p.m., most people have gone to bed, things kind of calmed down a little bit, and then I could do schoolwork. of course, as long as I wasn't neglecting my job, and certainly some nights were busier than others, and I could do more or less school, but it was a really good position to be in. I had a computer right in front of me. I could write papers. I could do some required reading, whatever. So I did that for 2 years, but I was going pretty stir crazy. I was figuring out during that time that I am not really a sit at a desk for 12 hours kind of person. Bless you if you are. The world needs them. I'm just not one of them. So I was fortunate enough to come from a police agency that also has an EMS service attached to it. So the director of the EMS division kind of heard that I was looking to do something different and kept telling me, go get your EMT certification, like come work in my division. I will help you out with your schedule. And so I ended up doing that. So I took a part-time semester from college and went and got my EMT certification that semester, and then was fortunate enough to be able to transfer to EMS for the rest of my time at my police department and work full-time there, and just had such a wonderful boss who was able to work around my labs and all the classes, and so I know that I probably got really lucky with that. Just know that you can advocate for yourself, that it's okay to let your job know that you want to do something different. You may encounter some supervisors that aren't supportive or kind of give you attitude about it. But then you might also have a supervisor come into your life that really wants to help you succeed and do well in life, and is grounded in realism that not everybody is going to stay there forever, it worked out really well, because obviously working full-time as an EMT for 3 years was a great thing to have on my medical school application. So, it was stressful but possible to work full-time and do school full-time, mostly full-time. I took a few semesters that were a little short, maybe like 12 hours or so. Again, just kind of scheduling issues with labs or whatever. But, if you're thinking about going to medical school, and especially if you're would be a non-traditional student and you're kind of worried about, working and finances and all those things, just know it's possible. It's possible. It's hard, but I did it. You can do it. So that was kind of the path that led me to medicine, getting interested in forensic pathology. But as I got into my time as an EMT, I started meeting a lot of emergency medicine doctors and internal medicine doctors that would be down in the ER, and did some job shadowing. Now I am interested in both of those jobs. I really don't know, honestly, what specialty I'm going to end up doing. But I think there's some beauty in that. I think there's something interesting in most every specialty for people. So, I guess keep your mind open. If you don't know what kind of medicine you want to do, it's okay. Medical school is going to help you figure that out along the way. So as far as grades, so being that I was working full-time at night and going to school during the day, I didn't always get to study as much as I wanted to, was certainly sleep deprived, and struggled a little bit with some of those upper level science classes that are required for medical school. It's just really hard to learn organic chemistry when your brain is not functioning on a full battery. It's possible. Like, I got through it, but could I have done better? Certainly. Absolutely. But so grades were A's and B's, a few more B's than I would have liked. I graduated with a cumulative GPA of like a 3.7. And then my science and math GPA, which if you don't know, med schools consider that separately, like they calculate that separately when you're in the application process. So my science and math GPA was only a 3.4, which is honestly not really in a competitive range. But again, I got into med school, so, coming in with average grades, and then it was kind of time to take the Mcat. And again, just coming from that really hectic background, I didn't get to prepare for the Mcat as much as I wanted to, and only scored a 503. But again, I got into med school. So if you're thinking about going down this path and you're worried that your grades aren't where they want to be, or you've taken the Mcat and haven't gotten the score that you want, just know it's possible. Med schools are accepting people because they're looking at who you are as a whole person. Just remember that. The grades and the numbers are not everything. Here I am, I'm a med student. So, I think for me, what stood out on my med school applications was my professional experience, my work experience. I did do a decent amount of job shadowing. I formally job shadowed. I did a summer internship at the coroner's office. And so for a few hours on the mornings that I was off work or school, I would go into the coroner's office and participate in autopsy for a couple hours. So I did like 32 hours of job shadowing at the coroner's office. And then I did about 80 hours of job shadowing in the emergency room or the hospital, at a local hospital, with some physicians who were kind enough to let me tag along. So let me look at I've got my resume pulled up. I just want to make sure I share. And then obviously I had some unique training classes and certifications from being in police and EMS for 10 years. I'm forgetting some volunteer work, or to talk about volunteer work. So I volunteered about 230 extra hours at my police department early on in my patrol time, just to get extra experience and try to make myself competitive for getting hired into the patrol division. So I had 230 hours of volunteer experience as a police officer. After I got my EMT certification, although the EMS service attached to my police department was busy, we were in the greater New Orleans area, and the New Orleans EMS, City of New Orleans EMS, took volunteers. So I volunteered about 60 hours with their EMS service. So, rode about 5 shifts with them, just because I wanted to get even more experience early on in my EMS time with trauma calls. New Orleans EMS just sees a lot of trauma, a lot of gun violence, a lot of traumatic car crashes. Not that I didn't see that in my time at my department, but just the volume that New Orleans EMS experiences is so much higher. So I rode 5 12-hour shifts with them and had some great volunteer experience there. And then I also volunteered just a couple hours, on a weekend morning here and there at a teaching farm in New Orleans that teaches a farm to table living, how to garden, how to raise some small animals like chickens or whatever, so they can host birthday parties or school field trips. And so I would go over there. So I only volunteered 16 hours with them, but just every now and then I would go over on a weekend morning or something and pitch in with chores around the farm or feeding the animals, just kind of whatever needed to be done. So, volunteer work doesn't have to be medically centered. They just want to see that you've done some on a med school application. And then so job shadowing, let me just make sure I didn't miss anything there. So about 32 hours with the coroner's office, shadowing an autopsy. Like I said, about 80 hours in the hospital. And then the only other unique thing that I had on my application was I participated in a professional conference in 2020. It was the American Academy of Forensic Sciences. They were doing a workshop on trauma in first responders, like the trauma that we experience on the job and kind of the disparity in mental health resources for first responders. And so I got invited to participate in that workshop and speak about the trauma that I've personally experienced and witnessed at work, and what my journey with mental health has been. So that was kind of a unique thing to put on my med school application, was participating in that professional conference. But I applied to medical school with pretty average grades and an Mcat. I think what largely helped me was the life and the work experience. So just know that whether you're a traditional or non-traditional student, don't get discouraged at the undergraduate curriculum. I hated a lot of the classes, honestly, like physics. If you don't feel passionate about those classes, it's okay. If you don't do great on the Mcat, it's okay. A lot of that is not going to come back up in medical school. It's just kind of more of, honestly, just a test. Unless you're going into like some really specific research that requires physics, I don't know when you would use that again. And I've never heard of when you would use it again from like a physician. So just look at it as a part of the process and just something you have to get through. If you're feeling discouraged, I was in those shoes. I mean, just days where I hated the coursework. I was feeling so discouraged, like med school seemed a million miles away. And now I'm here and I'm glad I didn't give up, and just know that you will get through it. I like to say, this is like my little joke. I don't think you have to be terribly smart to go to medical school. I think you have to be stupid enough to put yourself through undergrad in the Mcat, honestly. So yeah, that's just kind of my little story of how I got into med school. I did get in on the first round of applications as well. So again, that's possible. I didn't have to go through multiple application cycles. And I did not do research. I know a lot of people think you have to do research to get into medical school. I didn't do any research. So, here is just an average student, a realistic person. It's, coming to you, telling you if you want to go to med school, it is totally attainable. So yeah, this video is getting lengthy. I will wrap it up. But I'm hoping I've got like ideas for at least 10 videos that we could talk about a variety of topics, talk about the application process itself, do a video on advice for the Mcat or medical school classes, talk about interview day, interview techniques. So let me know what kind of videos you want to see. I will start making my way through the list of video ideas that I have, and let's just all lift each other up and help each other progress in our professional lives. So yeah, good to talk to you guys, and we'll be talking really soon. I think the second video that I'm going to do is the actual medical school application process. So yeah, I'll chat to you guys soon. Bye for now.